From the tale so long ago, past on the waves and the wind, we made it this far together, you know, some brothers and sisters and friends. Hinei mato manayim shevetachim gam yachad. Hinei mato manayim shevetachim gam yachad. Come gather round and hear the sounds. If you're the wandering kind, you can make it alone, but just so you know, we leave no one behind. Our mothers and fathers weathered the storms, cast on in the trials of their times. So we brothers and sisters live door by door, carry on with the song in our lives. Hinei mato manayim shevetachim gam yachad. Hinei mato manayim shevetachim gam yachad. Hinei mato shevetachim gam yachad. Hinei mato manayim shevetachim gam yachad. Hinei mato manayim shevetachim gam yachad. Hinei mato manayim shevetachim gam yachad. We'll sing out this song for years to come, in a story without an end, for how good it is to be among our brothers and sisters and friends.
Shabbat Shalom. Hinei matov, how good and wonderful it is for us to be together, those of us who are here in the sanctuary and those who are at home. This is that perfect first Shabbat evening where it's kind of cold outside, so if you're at home, maybe you're in your PJs already and you're curled up on the couch watching services, what a beautiful way to also welcome in Shabbat. If you are at home, grab your candles, grab your Kiddush cup, and in the sanctuary, it is an honor to invite forward Jackie and Marty Malt and family to help us welcome in Shabbat.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, who sanctifies us with thy mitzvot and commands us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
If we can all stand for the Kiddush on page 123 in your prayer books. If you turn to page 123, we will hear first on 122 the introduction from the book of Exodus, the last little sentences of chapter 1.
And there was evening and there was morning the sixth day. The heaven and the earth were finished, and all their array. On the seventh day God finished the work that God had been doing, and God ceased on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because on it God ceased from all the work of creation that God had done.
And we sing together now the Kiddushat Hayom, the sanctification of the day. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodesho b'havav ratzon hinechir lanu zikaron le'maaseh v'reshit ki hu yom techiro demikro kodesh zeicher le'tziot mitzrayim kivan v'karta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'arim v'shabbat Baruch atah Adonai Mikadesh HaShabbat.
And we say together, L'chaim, to life. You may be seated. So I've been thinking a lot about perspective. And of course, we live in a world where you think about one thing and you have to add a caveat about what it is that you're going to talk about but not talk about. So let me start by saying, when I'm thinking about perspective, in no way am I thinking about or referring to the school district in Texas that discussed offering multiple perspectives on history with regard to whether or not things happened or not, like the Holocaust, because it happened. And we have proof. Many of us know from our families, we know from our congregation, we know from people sitting in this congregation tonight, the Holocaust happened. But outside of that, I have been thinking about different points of view or multiple perspectives with regard to how people outside of ourselves experience or experienced things. For example, if we do want to talk about the Holocaust outside of ourselves or our own community, we can learn from the perspective or about the Roma. We can learn about any number of people who were put into concentration camps, like communists, criminals, prisoners of war, homosexuals, Jehovah's Witnesses. We can learn about the various resistance organizations and what they did and sacrificed, not just to help Jews, but to stop the Nazis. And while the Jewish story is one that we think about, and certainly we know that the Nazis' ultimate goal was the extermination of the Jewish people, this does not mean that there aren't other stories of people who were affected by the Nazi regime before, during, and even after World War II. We in the Jewish community focus so much on a Jewish perspective that it's important that we learn about other perspectives and experiences of others during World War II and how their lives were affected during this time period. Knowing other perspectives can be important and can give us a larger picture or view of the world and certainly of history. Last weekend, we met our kids in Washington, D.C., and we went for the first time to the National African American Museum. Perspective came to mind. Events in history that I knew about, I learned about in school, and yet as I walked through the museum, I realized I was missing a perspective. I'll give you an example. As I got to the part about the Revolutionary War, there is an incredible section on African Americans in the colonies who fought during the Revolutionary War on both sides. There were loyalists and there were patriots. This was a perspective I hadn't learned about. And since I hadn't learned about it, I'm going to be honest and say, I'm not sure I ever thought about it. I'm not sure I ever thought about the African American experience during the Revolutionary War. It is a missing piece of history. Think about it. How many textbooks not only leave out the African American experience during the Revolutionary War, so too do they leave out other experiences. How about the Jewish experience? How many of you know who Chaim Salomon is? Okay, a few. Reuben Edding, Abigail Minnis. These are all Jews who had roles in helping the Patriot side during the Revolutionary War. Perspective also plays itself out in the Torah, but more specifically in this week's Torah portion, Vayera. The section that we read this week contains the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. By the way, if you Google the binding of Isaac in English, it's a video game. Who knew? I thought I would share that. We often don't talk much about this part of the parasha. And when we do, we think about this little slice of the parasha with regard to Rosh Hashanah, because that's the big time when we read it, and we think about that ram, and we connect that ram to the shofar, the ram's horn. However, there's a whole lot more to this story, at least in the white spaces between the letters. We sort of hear Abraham's voice, but what was Isaac thinking? What was Sarah thinking? Where was Ishmael, Isaac's other brother, Abraham's older brother? And by the way, in the Quran, this story appears almost the exact same story, but a slightly different perspective, because it isn't the binding of Isaac, it's the binding of Ishmael. It is Ishmael that is being brought for sacrifice. So this Shabbat, as we think about perspective, I came across a wonderful piece on perspectives in the Akedah in Shema, the Journal of Jewish Ideas, and this is from 2011, and it was on Sefaria, so if you know Sefaria, you could find this. But tonight I want you to hear 3 perspectives from this parasha, just to think about as we go through our lives and we hear and experience something from our own point of view, what else might be happening or being experienced around us. So first, Isaac's perspective. I don't understand my father. He seems to love me so much. Whenever I call him, he says, "Hineni, here I am." And he's so protective of me. As we walked toward this place, he had me carry the wood, but insisted that he would carry the fire and the cleaver himself. He was worried that if I carried them, I might hurt myself. And yet, here we are on this mountain, and he is about to offer me up on the altar. I can't actually bring myself to say the words. He is going to sacrifice me, which means that he's going to kill me, his son, his favored son, whom he seems to love. He loves me, but I guess he loves God more? How am I supposed to feel about that? How am I supposed to feel about him? I'm not sure I'll ever be able to speak to him again. I don't understand God. My father has told me 100 times that the covenant God made with him was about our keeping God's own way by doing what is just and right. And yet, by what conceivable standard is what God is asking for here just or right? God wants my father to sacrifice me? I guess serving God is more difficult and more complicated than I could ever have imagined. What am I supposed to do? Argue? I've seen my father do that in other circumstances. Surrender my fate to God? That seems to be what my father thinks we both should do now. Maybe he's right. He's older, wiser, and has had many conversations with God. But what if he's wrong? What if God never speaks to him again either? What about my mother? Doesn't God care about how she feels? For so long, my father acted as if the covenant were between him and God, as though she didn't matter. Now, neither God nor my father ask her about the sacrifice. My mother has gotten an incredibly bad deal here, both from her husband and from God. No wonder she's so unhappy. I can't imagine she'll survive when she finds out what the two of them did to me. And what about Hagar? Poor Hagar. My father cast her out twice, each time abandoning her to her fate. But he didn't just cast her out. No, he cast her out with her little boy, my brother Ishmael. What if she had died? What if Ishmael had died? I get it now. First, he abandoned his first son, and now he's going to end my life too. And both times, because God told him to. What's wrong with him? What's wrong with him? What's wrong with them? If somehow I make it out of here alive, I'm going to find Hagar and bring her home. I think I know what she must feel like. Maybe we could comfort each other. Right now, all I know is that I just don't understand.
A son's perspective. My strong belief that Allah must have a plan assured me that I should go with my father, Ibrahim, up to the mountain. Both of us have such a strong feeling in our hearts and our belief in Allah. We wouldn't question the vision that my father had. Prophets had visions, not dreams, but visions in their sleep. Ibrahim saw in his sleep that this was what he was to do. Both he and I willingly agreed to walk toward the mount. I saw my father was anxious, and I tried to ease his pain. I wanted to help him affirm his faith in Allah. We knew that our deep strength in Aqidah, both in heart and practice, was crucial for this action. We also knew that the experience was a reflection of our relationship to one another. My father conveyed the message of his vision, and I helped him decide to fulfill it. Where was my mother? Was she not present because she was too vulnerable to be drawn into this decision of life and death? Was she with the women who were relegated to a different sphere of work and life? One that was centuries kept them apart from engagement with holy texts and decisions about religious matters?
And finally, the ram, because yes, animals have perspective too. Call me Isaac. Abraham named me after his son and made me the bellwether of his flock. So I witnessed the whole affair. I'll spare you the details, but to tell the truth, the real hero is me, Isaac the ram. The whole point of the story is that Abraham should make sacrifice to God, right? So who got sacrificed in the end? Isaac, son of Abraham, or me, Abraham's most treasured possession. I realize it may be hard for you people to accept that your Bible got it wrong, but your Midrash got it right. When the angel told Abraham not to send forth his hand against his son Isaac, who lay bound on the altar ready to be sacrificed, the Holy One, blessed be God, called out from heaven, "Let Isaac for Isaac come." That was my cue. I rushed toward the altar to be sacrificed, but Satan blocked my way. Trying to do an end run around Satan, I got caught in a thicket by my horns. Fortunately, I was already close enough to Abraham to stretch out my foreleg and tug at his talit. He turned around, set me free, and offered me up for a burnt offering instead of his son. Okay, I know what you're thinking. If I was sacrificed, how can I now be telling the story? Well, God resurrected me from the ashes of my burnt offering, and I've been up here ever since. Yes, we rams and ewes, of course, have a paradise. We feast on the freshest, greenest grass imaginable, and we don't find particularly appetizing the idea of eating the Leviathan and Behemoth like your righteous people do in paradise. But like you, we have a heavenly yeshiva where we study our version of Torah, including the full story of the Akedah. You can well imagine that we have a rather different take on the Paschal sacrifice, the scapegoat on Yom Kippur, and the rest of the sacrificial cult. By the way, the other members of my chavruta are the sheep that Jacob shepherded for Laban. They're still a rather spotty bunch, as you can well imagine, but that's a story for another day. I left that in for you, Art. I figured you'd appreciate that. So yes, the ram is humorous, but it's about perspective. These three stories, and there are other perspectives that have been written, they actually all come from midrash that have been written throughout the centuries of our people, where people sought to find perspective in the midst of the text, where people sought to find the voices that they felt were missing in these texts. So the question is, do we stop to think about, do we ponder what other people are thinking or experiencing? Do we think about walking in their shoes? Or are we so often so focused on ourselves and just our own experience and our own perspective? I'd like to think that the more perspective or perspectives that we have, that we think about, that we experience in this world, then perhaps the more understanding and perhaps even a little more peace. A lot of thinking about perspectives that perhaps we can do on Shabbat and begin with this parsha. Shabbat Shalom. And we will continue as we welcome in Shabbat, or continue welcoming in Shabbat with Lecha Dodi on page 138. And when we get to the last verse on page 139, we will rise and we'll turn towards the open doors in the back to symbolically welcome in the Shabbat bride.
לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה לך תודי לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה שמור וזכור מפיבור אחד Adonai echad u'shemo echad Yishem u'tiferet v'ritila Lecha Dodi Likrat kala B'nei Shabbat Nekabla Dodi Likrat kala b'nei Shabbat Nekabla Likrat Shabbat Nekubnelcha Ki hine kol haberata Merosh Nikedem Nizucha Zo Shabbat Echila Lecha Dodi Likrat kala b'nei Shabbat Nekabla Lecha Dodi Likrat kala b'nei Shabbat Nekabla Boi v'shalom ha'ateret ba'ala Gam b'simcha u'b'tzola Of emunei am sekula Bo nichala Likrat kala b'nei Shabbat Nekabla Lecha Dodi Likrat kala b'nei Shabbat Nekabla
standing and continue on page 146 with the Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai
Continue together in the Hebrew on page 148. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, v'chochma poteach she'arim, uvitvuna mishane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umesader et hakochavim, v'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono, borei yom v'layla, Golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or. Uma'avir yom umevi laila, umavdil bein yom uvein laila. Adonai tzvaot shemo. El chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. And on page 151, we read together at the top of the page. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael, page 152.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai
Continue in the English on page 154. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand, and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. And we turn to page 158 for Mi Chamocha. And as the malt girls are going down, thank you. We turn to page 160 for Hashkivenu.
Hashkivenu, Adonai, Eloheinu L'Shalom, Hamidenu, Shomreinu, L'chaim, L'chaim. Let there be love, guard us with peace, strength and compassion for all in need. Shield us from hate, illness, and war. Watch over us as we go forth. Hashkivenu, Adonai, Eloheinu L'Shalom, Hamidenu, Shomreinu, L'chaim, L'chaim. Fill us with hope, grace, and truth. May we all return to you. Keep us safe tonight. May we rise in a new light. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu Shalom Hamidenu Shomreinu L'chaim 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 L'chaim
And we pause for a moment in our service, and one among us is here to celebrate her 90th birthday and receive a blessing. And tonight she is surrounded by her family. I'm going to ask Bonnie Bernstein and her family to please rise in their seats, and we'll come to you. And what an honor and joy to bless you tonight. And you are surrounded by your children and your grandchildren. Author of life, our times are in your hand. And we thank you for the blessing of life and for everything that enriches our lives. We turn to you now with special gratitude to share in the happiness of Bonnie turning 90 as she celebrates and marks this birthday.
Be with her now and always. May she be blessed with health and happiness and with the strength to overcome sickness and sorrow.
And as we honor Bonnie for the gifts that she brings to this sacred community, we pray that each day brings her an abundance of blessing. And as you stand here with your family, Shabbat is the time when traditionally parents bless their children. So I'm going to now ask your family to all join hands and at least place it, making sure you're all in sort of a circle so that your hands are with Bonnie. As you now, all of you, give blessing to her and give back that blessing that she has given. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God continue to bless you and watch over you.
Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. May God's countenance shine upon you and be gracious to you.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. And may the presence of God continue to surround you in your life. And may the presence of God in your life and this amazing family bring to you the gifts of shalom and shalem, the gifts of peace and gift of wholeness. And to that we all say, Amen. We say Mazal Tov, we say Happy Birthday, and we say Ad Mea Ve'esrim. May you live to be 120, just as Moses. So that's 30 more years than we talked about in there. I know, there's a missing person. He's thinking about it. He is. I'm going to ask everyone now to please rise as we turn to page 164, and we continue with the Amidah.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agidei latecha. Adonai, open up my lips and my mouth may declare your praise. Page 166. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanora El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, וקוני הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם, ועזרת שרה, page 168, אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חורים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מרוך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל. page 170, אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
You may be seated. And we turn forward in our prayer books to page 371. And at this time in our service, we turn our hearts, our thoughts, our prayers to those in our community, our friends, our loved ones who are in need of healing. And if you are thinking of someone who is in need of healing, I ask that you rise this time, even if you are at home, and together we will share all of those names, sharing them into the universe. Please rise if you have a name to share aloud, and you may do it now. We take all of those names into our hearts, everyone for whom we are thinking at this time, and may God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and of spirit as we join together now in singing Misha Berach, our prayer for healing.
Of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. Let us say
Silent and personal prayer.
Ose shalom, himroma. Ose shalom, himroma. Ose shalom, himroma. Ose Yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Oseh shalom. Say shalom, himroma. Oh, say shalom, himroma. Oh, say shalom, himroma. Oh, yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru. Amen.
I just feel so filled up right now. Two beautiful families, and just the warmth in this congregation and in this sanctuary right now. My name is Fran Balk, and I am a member of the Board of Trustees of United Hebrew Congregation, the best congregation there is in St. Louis. Tomorrow at UH, Torah study begins at 9 o'clock and will be in the library. Shabbat morning services and bar mitzvah of Nathan Malt at 10:30 a.m. At 6 p.m., we usher out Shabbat with next week's Now Havdalah. Upcoming events. This is a long list, by the way, because this congregation has so many programs for its congregants. It's amazing. Join us on Sunday, October 24th at 9 o'clock in the morning for Build Your Jewish Toolbox. This month's session will be on holidays. UH will hold game day in the parking lot on Sunday, October 24th. Is that where we play pickleball? Yes. Okay. We will be collecting items and raising funds for those in need in our community. Bring your own lunch and our snacks, as well as any games you would like to play. On Monday, October 25th at 1 o'clock is the October Virtual Senior Program, Ready to Wear with author Valerie Battle Kinzel. Shabbat Alive, oh, this should be great. Rick Reck is terrific. Shabbat Alive with United Hebrew Artist in Resident, Rick Reck, on Friday, November 5th at 6:30 p.m. UH will partner with the American Red Cross for a blood drive on Tuesday, November 10th from 1 to 6 p.m. in the chapel. A listing of additional upcoming classes and programs can be found on our website. UH is working with the International Institute of St. Louis to collect supplies for the Afghan refugees coming to St. Louis. Currently, their most pressing needs are gift cards to places like Target, Walmart, and grocery stores. Don't forget about our olive oil fundraiser. Oh my gosh. With My Tree in Israel. This is a unique program that connects you directly to an Israeli farmer by adopting an olive tree in their grove. The last day to order is October 31st. Thank you to our greeters, ushers, and our tech team. Please note the gift shop is open on Sundays from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. when religious school is in session and by appointment. Thank you very much.
That means next Shabbat will be the final Shabbat you hear about the olive oil fundraiser. We continue now on page 586 as we all rise for Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגוררנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Page 591 ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
You may be seated. And we continue on page 596. When cherished ties are broken and the chain of love is shattered, only trust and the strength of faith can lighten the heaviness of the heart. At times, the pain of separation seems more than we can bear. But if we dwell too long on our loss, we embitter our hearts and harm ourselves and those about us. The psalmist said that in his affliction he learned the law of God. And in truth, grief is a great teacher when it sends us back to serve and bless the living. We learn how to counsel and comfort those who, like ourselves, are bowed with sorrow. We learn when to keep silent in their presence and when a word will assure them of our love and concern. Thus, even when they are gone, the departed are with us, moving us to live as in their higher moments they themselves wish to live. We remember them now. They live in our hearts. They are an abiding blessing. This Shabbat, the heartfelt condolences of our congregation go out to the families of Judith Judy Getzlow, Penny Ann Canefield, and Sheldon Winehouse. We are in the period of Shloshim for Alan Furfine, Tamadine Altman Goldenhirsch, Jason Scott Koenig, Harlan J. Raymond, Eileen Rosenthal, David J. Schreiber, M.D., Dean Thompson, Gail Beth Talkman. This week, this Shabbat, we observe the yahrzeits and we lovingly remember Harry Alter, Gottlieb B. Barkin, Maurice S. Brash, Alfred Bromett, Harriet J. Bronfin, Meyer Bronson, Dorothy Cohen, Lillian DeWaskin, Kenneth Samuel Fadum, Betty Fagan, Irwin Field, William Fink, Isidore Fischlewitz, Irma R. Gersman, Etta Glazer, Jesse Levy Goldberg, Gloria Ellens Goldstein, Bertha Greenberg, Annie Hafner, Francis Newman Handelman, David Harris, Rose Hilton, Jeanette Kabak, Isidore Katz, Stanley Katz, Marilyn Feldman Kreisman, Max Landau, Arnold Lerman, Philip Merriam, Albert Mayer, Edward C. Meyer, Louis Muchnick, Abe Noddeth, Frank Allen Oswitz, Sylvia Eichen Pearl, Norman A. Peskin, Robert Potashnik, M.D., Rose K. Rains, Ben Satz, Ben R. Schneider, Paul Schneider, Bertha Schrenzel, Ruth Schwartz, Evelyn Seligman, Jerome Shainman, Clara S. Simon, Abraham Slepsky, James Douglas Smith, Francis Spector, Isaac H. Simons, Ben F. Turner, Gustav A. Vittert, Rosa Weil, Lori Beth Weintraub, Ida Weiss, Malcolm G. Weiss, Bessie Weitzman. Zichronam livracha, may each of their memories be for blessing, as we turn to page 598 and we rise for the recitation of the Mourner's Kaddish. Yit Gadal ve'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, Bialma Divra Chirute Viamlich Malchute, V'chayechon Uvyomechon, Uv'chaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala Uvizman Karib V'imru Amen. Yehe Shemei Rabba Mevorach Le'olam Momei Almaya, Yit Barach Ve'yishtabach Ve'yit Pa'ar Ve'yit Romam Ve'yit Naseh, V'yit Hadar Ve'yit Alev Ve'yit Halal Shemei Dekudashar Barichu, Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata, Tushbechata V'nechamata, Damiram Be'alma V'imru Amen. Yehe Shalama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen. And we invite Nathan Malt to join us on the bima. Nathan really is going to be our benediction this evening. In a moment, he will play, and then we will join him. On page 678, you'll find the words to Hatikva. And as we think about perspective, a poem that was written a very long time ago, a poem that was written that was an anthem for the Jewish people always longing to return at least to their own autonomy, sovereignty, became a national anthem. And this week, as we think about perspective, an important piece to play, but also chosen as this past week, I believe it was the Hebrew date Yartzeit of Yitzhak Rabin, former Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. If you think in English dates, that's November 4th, but it was on the Hebrew date this week. And as we think of the perspective of olive oil and Israeli farmers and being one with the land, we can think of Hatikva as well.
forward to this next generation of Jews. And
Lord, balevav benima nefesh Yehudi omia ufatei mizrach kadima ayin lezion Sophia Adlodo tikvatenu Hatikva ad shnot alpayim Liotam chavshim be'artzenu Eretz Zion Yerushalayim Liotam chavshim be'artzenu Eretz Zion Yerushalayim.
Shabbat Shalom. And thank you to the Malt family for your beautiful music this evening, and we look forward to celebrating with all of you tomorrow. Shabbat Shalom.